And a 5 and 7-year-old Cora and Eleanor were like, wow, how did you do that? And so he does it again, and they're like, wow, how did you do that? And then the third time he does it really slow, and Eleanor sees it fall. So then she goes home the next day and she shows her dad how to do it. And of course, when it gets to this point, she opens both hands, so it's obvious what's falling. And so oftentimes we talk about magic and magicians, and we think that there's not quite good things about them. And that's not a bad thing, to be a little skeptical about stuff. But they have actually used the word magi in the New Testament 2 other times than here. Did you know that? They do. The 2 times that they use them are both in the book of Acts. And the first one is in Acts 8, and you have Simon Magus. And Simon Magus was what they called a magi. And he was out in the city, and what he was doing is he was watching the apostles, and they were doing amazing things. They were healing people, and they were just loving on people and doing all kinds of stuff that most people couldn't do. And so Simon decided he wanted to do that. So he goes over to Paul and he goes, hey, tell you what if I pay you and you teach me how to do this? And Paul goes, no. You don't understand this. What I'm doing is not because of me. It's because of God. It's what God has done this. And I don't know if you'll ever be able to do it or not, but it's coming from God. It's not coming from me. And because of Simon Magus, have you ever heard of the act of simony? The act of simony is when you try to pay to get into politics, or you try to pay to get your way going forward or whatever. The act of simony comes from the Bible, comes from Simony Magus here in the book of Acts. It's trying to pay for something that you don't deserve because you want it. All right, so the next Acts is in Acts 13. It's the next time that we see the word magi. And it's Elymas, and he is an advisor to one of the politicians that's there. It's interesting that both of these magi happen to have to do with politics, but that's what was going on at this point in time. The Romans were very up there. And so he was the advisor to one of the officials, and the officials wanted to become Christian. And Magus was saying, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And Paul knew it was important for this politician to become Christian because people followed this politician. And so Paul was very much in support of this politician, learning about Christ and having the opportunity to claim Christianity as his faith. And so Paul made this magi become blind for a little bit of time, but it taught him who was in charge. It wasn't the magi. And so those are 2 ways that magi's were used in the Old Testament. Well, in the New Testament, in the Old Testament, we see it in the book of Daniel, and we also see it in the book of Genesis, but they're not doing the magi part as the magic, which is what we see in the New Testament. In the Old Testament, they are able to take dreams, and they are able to decipher dreams. Do you remember the one that's really popular that could decipher dreams, who that is? Joseph, yes. And then the other one that is in the book of Daniel, the magi there is summoned again by the king of Babylon to decipher his dreams. So in the Old Testament, it's about dreams, and in the New Testament, the magi's are there because they are actually trying to use power to not do any good. So dreams are important, and they're stuff that give us possibilities beyond possibilities. But I want to go back to the wise men for a little bit. They see the star and they're in the east. But what's interesting about this is, so let's say this is the east and the star's there, but right about midway is where Bethlehem is, and over by the Christmas tree is where Jerusalem is. So it really doesn't make sense that they went from the east to Jerusalem and then backtracked to come to Bethlehem. So why would they do that, do you think? Well, it was something we were talking about in Sunday school today, and it's something that has happened all through the Bible. Sometimes things that look not important, and sometimes things that we don't understand, like why would they go past Bethlehem to Jerusalem and then come back, is because sometimes bad things have to happen to make good things come out of them. And it was important that they went and told Herod what was going to happen. Even though Herod had every child under 2 killed, but what that did is that set Jesus apart as a king. And it showed how important Jesus was and how special Jesus was. And so it was necessary for, as using the terms of Pharaoh in the Old Testament, they had to harden Herod's heart here to make the birth of Jesus even more important. And to make that king want to try to say, if I get rid of all the 2-year-olds and the boys that are under 2, then it won't matter anymore. For me, that is like my epiphany moment. Oh, that makes perfect sense. Sometimes bad things happen because we have to see where we can go from there and make better things happen. So then the wise men finally get to Bethlehem and they bring the gold and the frankincense and myrrh. So they bring the gold, which is money, and the frankincense, which is what smells good, and the myrrh, which is how you anoint a body once it has died. And so they bring the beginning, which is the frankincense, the gold, which helps him survive in his life, and the myrrh about the end of his life. So then they go home by another route. How did they know to go home by another route? Because of a dream. When we look at this story out of the book of Matthew about Jesus' birth, there are dreams everywhere. There are dreams in the fact that Matthew has Joseph in the dream, the angel coming and saying, Mary is pregnant by the Holy Spirit. I know this is controversial. Stay with her anyway. In a dream. But that's not the only dream that we have. Then we have the Magi, and they have the dream that says, you need to not go back to Jerusalem. You need to go home another way. And they do that. And then they have the dream to Joseph after King Herod has said, we're going to kill all the children that are under 2. Joseph gets the dream that says, take your family to Egypt. And that's what he does. And they go to Egypt and they stay there until he has yet another dream. And the next dream says, okay, you can come back from Egypt now. But the son of King Herod is still there, so you might not want to go back to Bethlehem. So they come back, but they go to Nazareth. And that's where we get Jesus from Nazareth. So that's all of that goes from dreams. So we're at the beginning of the new year. And I want to ask you now, what dreams do you have for the new year? Have you thought about that? Have you written out a to-do list of, or dream about where you want to be this time, 2024? Have you thought about what dreams you have for Mem 1? I would love for you to spend the next week thinking about the dreams that you have for Mem 1. And I would love for you to text me or email me or call me or whatever and tell me what your dreams are for Mem 1. We have a visioning team that's been working on this. We have other groups that have been working on this, but I would love to hear from everybody else what your visions are for Dream 1, for Mem 1. The big dream that we have and the challenge I put forth to you is to do 80 acts of service this year. We've talked about this being our 80th anniversary. And so 80 acts of service, and it doesn't mean the entire church has to do it, but what it means is that you do it on behalf of Mem 1. And when you have, and that means it breaks down to 7 acts of service a month that the church needs to do, and different groups can do it. And for instance, when we collect food at the beginning of every month and we fill up that grocery cart, and then James Frable usually takes it to Susan's pantry. Every month that gets done, that would count as one act of service. The fact that we have the little library that's out there, that counts as acts of service. And so what you'll do is these slips of paper, and they're all beautiful colors, and you can pick whichever one you want, will be in the social hall. And after you've done an act of service on behalf of the church, then you will write it down on this piece of paper, just like this. This one says, Feed Galveston. Raise your hand if you went to Feed Galveston yesterday. There were quite a few of us there. Yeah. If you can show those pictures, Scott, here's a few pictures of the people working. There's Tyler and I in those beautiful hairnets. We were really rocking those well. And there you go. There's Damien. And there's Malachi. So see if you can see everybody. Yeah, that you got to sanitize your hands and then put on the great hairdo things and put your gloves on. Hey, Billy. Billy was at my station. We were doing macaroni and cheese. Yeah, those hairnets were kind of interesting. There's Daniela and Trent. So we packed over 4,000 meals. We didn't, just our church, everybody that was there over the time. And each pack fed 6 people all of the nutrients that they need. And each box cost $20 to do it. And that sounds like a lot of hard work and a lot of good stuff done, except that every single day there's 30,000 people that don't have food in Galveston County. So basically what we packed yesterday were just a little over a day's worth of food. But what we did is then we filled out one of these that said Feed Galveston. And then also last week, there were a group of people from here. If you've gone to Independence Village before and played or sang for them, raise your hands. Not necessarily this week, but if you've gone before. Independence Village is a group home that is here, and we've got a group of musicians and non-musicians alike. We've got some great dancers that go, and they sing and they dance and they just have an exceptionally good time. It's the first Tuesday night of every month. Is that it? And so Independence Village, this is something that we do in the name of MEM 1. And so we already have 2 on the chain here. And we can put 3 with the little library. And so the idea is to have 80 of these by the end of the year all around the fellowship hall. So my dream is that we get this filled before December of next year. But start thinking about what you can do mission and ministry-wise, dream-wise. And it's anything that the women's group does, or it's whenever the garden outside takes food to people outside of our church. It's all of those kind of things that we can do as far as the mission and ministry that we're going to do. So dream, magic, aha moments. That's what Epiphany is about. So in the next week, think about that. Think about, what are you dreaming for? Look and see where those aha moments are. And see where you see God in your life. Be it those little buds that are coming out now because they think winter's over, only probably to be frozen again in a couple of weeks. Or if it's somebody that says something to you that you think, wow, that was really nice. Where are you going to see God this week? Who are you going to see God in? Or what are you going to hear? Maybe it's a beautiful song that just hits you right here and you go, yes, that's God working. Keep those things in mind. What are your dreams? What are your aha moments? And where do you see God this week working in your life? That's what Epiphany is like. And that's what Epiphany is about. And all God's children say, amen.